Right, so now let me show you how to do a non-destructive way of creating this patch that fixes a water spot. And this is going to be done with the clone stamp tool. So let's just zoom back into this same image. I'm going to drag this around, get a little bit tighter so I can see what I'm working with. So there's our ugly water spot on my lens. So the first thing I want to do is create an empty new layer. So we're going to go down here to the bottom right and go create new layer. So that's got nothing on it. That is where we're going to create our patch. So press S on your keyboard, or you could just click down here for the clone stamp tool. That's the icon for the clone stamp tool. So now we've launched our clone stamp tool. And how this works is you hold down your Alt or Option key, and then you get this little target icon here. And then you would just click in the area that you'd like to take a clone from. It's called a clone stamp tool because you clone a source and then you stamp it to cover up a blemish. Now the problem is, if I think in my mind that I've cloned something, but I haven't. If I now roll my mouse over something or click, nothing happens. And the reason for that is if you look up here on this top panel here with these properties, look at where it says sample. And you'll see in this drop down that it says current layer. Well, this is my current layer and there's nothing on it. So how can I sample anything from it? I can't. So what you need to do is make sure, if you're doing this the non-destructive way and you've created a new layer, is where you get this drop down, just switch that to current and below. And immediately now, when I roll this brush over the image, you could see that it started to take a patch. So as I said, the way that this works is you hold down Alt, you get this little icon, click on an area that you want to sample, and now you can see that that is the sample that it's picked up. So if I was to click on this area over here with the grass, I'll hold down Alt, click where this grass is, you'll see that that is now the patch. Now the problem that I can see with this patch that I've got, if I just zoom out a little bit and I go up over here, if you look at this patch that I've got, you can see that the brush, this circular brush that I have, it's got a very soft edge, and the patch kind of bleeds out beyond the area that I want to patch in, and I don't want that. The reason for that is because my brush settings are set to a very soft brush, and that's because I usually prefer to have a very soft brush for things like exposure blending or dodging, or anything that I'm usually doing with the brush usually has, if we go up here, it usually has a hardness of 0. But because I'm doing a patch, I want to keep it fairly well contained, so I'm going to switch that hardness, pull that slider up to around about 60. So now if you look at this patch, it's not a hard edge, but it's definitely more contained within the boundaries of my brush, and that is better for when you're trying to clone out something and do a patch. So let's now zoom in and look at this area here. So obviously that piece of grass is not going to work for this, so I'll hold down Alt and I'll click around here to create a new patch. So just click, let go of the Alt or Option key, and now you've got this beautiful new patch. I'm just going to roll that over there and click, and that is it. It's done. To me, that looks completely convincing. If I zoom out, absolutely perfect. Now, looking at it from here is not too bad, but if I zoom in a little bit, I can see a pattern repetition there. You can see just above here, there's this blocky rock, and you can see it repeated there. So if you wanted to break up that pattern, you're gonna have to do another patch. So let's go back in, let's just move around. You have to fill that in a little bit. So let's create another sample. So I'm gonna hold down Alt, and maybe I'll get this rock from here with this cool little crease in it. And I could maybe shrink my brush down a little bit with the left bracket key, and I could just kind of click there, and that breaks up that repetition. And I think that looks absolutely brilliant. Now I'll show you one cool other little thing that you might want to do if you are finding that you need to do a few more patches to get something to look really convincing. What you can do, if you click up here, you can get into your clone source properties. And a way that you can randomize your clone source, whatever it is, piece of rock or whatever, is to flip it horizontally or vertically. So if you click flip horizontal, now whatever it is that you selected has been flipped horizontally, and it's going to look different, which means that you won't be able to spot that pattern quite so well. So you could click there, maybe click there, and it just kind of randomizes your patch a little bit better. You can also click on this one and you can flip it vertically. Again, it will just really change things up so that it's not quite so visible. You don't spot the pattern. Now, if you do use those two functions, just make sure that when you've finished, you just deselect them, you switch them off, because you don't want those to be applied by default the next time you use this clone stamp tool. So let's just close that. So I'm going to press Control 0 or Command 0 and zoom out. That looks absolutely brilliant. And as I said at the beginning of this tutorial, if you switch that on and off, that's non-destructive because that whole patch now exists on its own layer, and we didn't change any of the pixels from the background layer. I don't know about you, but that's quite impressive.